to introduce something that Oan has started, the Art for Children Gallery in Da Nang in Vietnam. And the Rindert is in fact the one who made the biggest contribution to the Art for Children Gallery when I started with it, because I just got tired of the children. They didn't like the exhibitions for adults, and I want to do something for young children. And then Rindert came into our shop and he said, "Oh, you should bring the work of Sylvia Weve, because she illustrated my new book." And then he introduced me to the children book illustrators. And so I got to get to know all those people. And so he's in fact one of the most important persons for the Art for Children Gallery and the Art for Children, Art Lending for Children. So that's Rindert. And Oan is now the one who is going with it further. In the 90s she started, but now we just had to stop it for a while because of COVID. But yeah, we hope as soon as possible to go. So I give you to my, it's a kind of, people sometimes ask about me and Oan, and we have exactly the kind of relation that Rindert has with Tonke Dracht. Rindert, he introduced me also to Tonke. And for me, Tonke is one of the best authors in the Netherlands. And he's very friend with her, but she's such a good teacher. She's helping people to discover their own abilities, and she's so nice. And that's a little bit what I do with Oan. But Oan is much smarter than I, because she's much younger, and every generation is smarter than the previous one. And so, but in each case, sometimes we meet people, they are older and they're helping us to discover ourselves. And that's in my, as far as I understand, how Rindert and Tonke are, that Tonke is, has always been a big support for him.
Yes.
Is that true?
That's true. Do you know, did you know that Tonke and I have written a book together? A children's book?
Welk boek?
It was about 2 years ago. Wie achter deze deur verdwaalt.
My name's On, and nice to see you guys all here and to be in the meeting today. Thank you so much. So I think I will try to ask everyone's my rangers separate a little bit, Natascha separate a little bit, to know about how you work and how you develop so far and still keep working on that. So and maybe at the end we can asking something all together, so we can have a nice kind of videos for the Vietnamese to see later in the YouTube, because I think it's nice for a lot of young Vietnamese have to encourage and also trying to do like same with you guys.
Yes.
So can I start first with Rindert?
Yeah, sure.
If I pronounce your name right, correct, Rindert?
Yes, well, I can tell you about, wait a minute, I get something. About the book Natascha and I have made together.
Nice.
In picture books, but in books. The first thing I have to do is to get an idea for the story. And this book started with, I wanted to write a story about a house at the garden full of flowers and plants. And you couldn't see where the house ended and where the garden began. It was all covered with plants and flowers. And then I thought, it would be nice if next door there would be a house in the garden without any plants. House and garden are equal. You couldn't see where the garden ended and where the house began. That was the first idea for this story. And then I started thinking, and as I always do, I started making notes in a notebook like this.
Oh, yeah.
Just with a pen. And when I make notes and some sentences for the story, I can think better about my book. And when I write, the story comes to life. So
Nice.
then I wrote the first draft, and I thought this would be a nice story for Natascha, because we've made a book before together.
Mm.
This book, I don't want to go to school, and it's full of beautiful pictures. I'll show you, for example, this one.
Beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah.
So when I had this story in my mind about the houses with the gardens, I thought Natascha would be great. So I asked her, would you do this book together with me? And Natascha said, yes, I like the idea. It's
Mhm.
okay. And then I write the first draft. It's just a story, no pages, no nothing, just the first draft of a story. And I send it to Natascha. And then she comments on it, and she starts thinking about how can I make 12 spreads, which part of the story for which spread. And
Yeah.
so
And I go like this. I
Oh,
start
lovely.
very small drawings. I divide the book into 12 pages. It's 12 spreads, of course. And then I make really small sketchings with some kind of composition. So every page has a different composition. Sometimes it goes like this vertically, and sometimes straight or round, or some movement in there. And that's how I start first. And then then I make different sketches.
Nice.
And then I send it back to with written memories next to it, and I send it back to Rindert.
So every picture book should have 12 spreads here in the Netherlands. 12. That's 32 pages, but there's a title page, etc., etc. So there's room for 12 spreads always in a picture book. And so I sent it to Natascha, and she sent some sketches to me, and so the story, the book starts growing. And in the end, a picture book, in my opinion, should be a book in which text and illustrations tell the story together.
Nice.
The text can't do without the illustrations, and the illustrations can't do without the text. That's important when we make a picture book. Agree, Natascha?
Yes, I do. Yeah, most definitely. Yeah, I think they should be complementary to each other.
When there's something in the text repeated in the picture, that's not okay. When there's something on the picture repeated in the text, that's not okay, because it's double. They should cooperate with each other, tell the story together. That's always the most important thing. Skip all the text, that's not necessary.
Yeah, that's called show, don't tell in pictures.
Yeah.
And there's always things that you can't draw in a picture, like dialogues and feelings. Yeah, sometimes feelings you can draw, of course, but it's nice when sometimes it's written and sometimes it is you can see it visual.
Yes, I have a question for that. I see that you show in how you sketch with 12 pages, Natascha. So I see besides also a lot of text, but into the final, I believe that we do not using all the text, right? So who will be the one rewrite the text?
I think Rindert is the one that rewrites the text. I start sketching, and I email my sketchings to the publisher and to Rindert, and then they look at the text again, look at my pictures and see if it's fitting and right, and just like they imagined maybe, and they start rewriting, and then I I can or send me corrections to make on my sketchings, and then then I work out some sketchings and I send them back, and sometimes I have to change other things, and sometimes the text will be even changed again because of the pictures, and maybe there's more or maybe there's not enough space for the illustration for the text. Usually try
and
to.
then I have to skip some sentences because of it's too much text. It's never a problem. It's always a matter of kill your darlings.
I don't like that, Rindert. I don't like writers having to change the amount of text in order to fit into my illustrations. I always like to have enough room for the text, but
Yes,
sometimes
I'm always humble to you. I'm always humble to you, so I do what you say.
That's a funny comment. So how much the publisher will involve into all the process from you both, from the illustrations and also the text from publisher?
What is it? Say, ask it again, because I didn't understand. How much is publisher?
Get involved into the process for the text and also for the illustrations.
I think Rindert is a very experienced writer, and we also worked with a very experienced publisher. So she knew what we could do, Rindert and me. And I think she kept herself a little to the background and left a lot of those communications between Rindert and me. And not she did comment on things, and she also had an opinion about some things, but there was not much. I think it's mostly Rindert and me, with a little bit of the publisher. But what do you think, Rindert?
Yes, well, the publisher, when they see the manuscripts and the illustrations, the publisher can always come, and they do so, come with suggestions for improving the book. They never say, change this or change that. They always say, we'll think about changing this or have another look at that. But the last word is ours and not the publisher. And the publisher can always say, we don't like the book, we don't want it. But when they want the book, we, Natascha and I, are the boss.
Nice.
That's what the publisher says. The
We
publisher
both
says
have-
always, it's your book, we come only with suggestions.
That's so nice to be working with experienced co-workers like the publisher, Rindert. It's really nice to everybody to trust everybody's expertise.
The publisher, he or she looks at the product, at the book, or look more at the ones who are going to buy it.
What they should do is just look at the book.
Yeah, I also.
When the book is finished, when the book is finished and printed, then the buyer is important. But not when you work on the book.
Buyer,
because when you work on a book, you can't think, who will like this book? He or she or she or she. The children don't exist. They all got different tastes. So you have to, when you work on a book, you have to follow your own taste. And when it's finished, you hope that many, many readers will like it. But if not, okay. If it's a beautiful book for just a few readers, that's also okay.
Yes.
You have to look at the quality of the book. And the reader, when working on a book, is not important.
And the fun making it.
And the fun making it, that's the most important.
I asked that question because in Vietnam, the situation is a little bit like 40 years ago in the Netherlands, that they are they don't have a lot of original authors and illustrators because they bring a lot from America and other countries. and somehow it's interesting when they bring a product that is really additional to what they make themselves, but they also have a lot of popular books. So I love it when your book is published in Vietnam, because for a lot of illustrators and others, they will say, hey, this is so nice. This technique we don't use. It's not the typical American illustration way and writing. So for me, this I think this editor is taking a lot of risk by bringing this kind of books. But I also think that it's also very good for local artists in Vietnam, that they see we do not have to follow a certain style that is very popular in America or other countries. So
that's a very big shame. That the local culture and the local artists are being pushed in this mold, in this mold that is not theirs. I think I've been looking a little bit into the Vietnamese culture because of your water theater, puppet theater, and I looked it up online and in YouTube, and I saw those really beautiful made puppets and those very experienced puppeteers who made the most beautiful theater in Vietnam, and I thought, well, I'm very, very curious about the art, the rest of the art and the rest of the books that are made by local artists in Vietnam. But it's a shame to hear that they are conforming to American imports. That's a very big shame, because I think there's a very big potential.
Yeah, but
I agree. I've seen the puppet theater on the water too. It's beautiful. We haven't anything like that here in the Netherlands. So you are an example to us instead of the other way around.
Yes.
Well, they do have a lot of interesting culture, but they also had some problems with all the kind of visitors that came from France, from China, and they didn't bring culture, they bring other things. But so it's only maybe 20, 30 years that they got time, and very slowly they got a little bit of money to invest in this kind of things. So that's why, for me, it's about the same situation as 40 years ago, when the situation of an illustrator was very, very bad at those days. And in Vietnam, it's still a little bit the same. So this editor, it's still a little bit a mess, like everything in Vietnam. I love that. But what they do by bringing this kind of books and this kind of illustrations, I think is really, really very interesting to develop the market in Vietnam. But I also have just one question. No, I have many more. But you showed your sketches, but you cut the originals are cut.
Yes, they are.
It's cutting in wood. When you cut something away, yeah, oh, it's so great.
Oh wow.
But when you're drawing and something is wrong, you just can erase it, or
yes.
But you cannot do that. I remember from Tae Chong King, he makes watercolor. Watercolor, I think. I forgot the name. And it's the same. When he makes mistakes, he has to make everything again, because you cannot cut away something.
No, and I interviewed him once. He has many different drafts of his work. He always and I asked him, how do you do it? Well, I just throw it away and make a new one, just as long just until I make something I like. Yes, but with me it's different, right? I can sketch and then erase it, but I always make, I can't show you, the back side, you can see I painted really dark brown, it's still a little bit on the back side. It's white paper, and I painted brown. And afterwards, I put the color on. So first, it's really dark brown. Maybe, yeah, you can see it here. Look, this is the underpainting. So if I do something wrong, I just go over it with the underpainting again. And afterwards, I draw on it with pencil. And this was wood. This I made from wood. This is just, I think, plywood.
Wow.
3 blocks.
Yeah.
I thought I explained to school classes when I visit schools in Holland. I show this to them, and I explain that the splinters in the wood, is that even an English word? I think so. Splinters. They look a bit like the hair of the yes. Just for the contrast between the badger and the penguin, I cut the penguin just black and white out of black paper. You can see it better like this. Look, it's black paper, and so this looks very, very biologic somehow, and this looks really clean cut, and that's exactly the difference between them in the beginning, because the garden of Mr. Ping is very very smooth and very white and clean, and the other one is a bit messy and a little bit just more like this room behind me. And the garden I see out of the window behind the camera.
Don't throw them away, because I will go to Vietnam somewhere around September, and I would love to take with me some of the materials you do not use anymore to show there, and then the editor, when they go to book fairs or something, they can show the people how the original illustrations are made. And for me, that's always so interesting that people can see how it is made. Then they say, wow. So, because so often people think, yeah, it's a gift. That's something, but it's a lot of work, and it's interesting when they see all the work.
Yes.
Yeah, but how can you know the Vietnamese editors? So who come to you first? The new book that you publish in Vietnam, and how they approach you, and how about the process that your books is published now in Vietnam?
That's just our Dutch publisher.
Mm-hmm.
They have the foreign rights department, and they go to fairs, and they speak to other publishers there, and other publishers. You got big fairs, some big fairs. There's a big fair of children's books in Bologna every springtime. And end of March, beginning of April. This year it was earlier, and that's where the publishers meet, of course. And in October you always have the big fair in Frankfurt, and I believe there's some big fair in Asia as well. Rindert, do you know?
In Asia, it's often annually. I believe it should be in Hong Kong and Bangkok. To big places that they organize, but of course they still have like some small local one could exist in Singapore or Malaysia, like KL, Kuala Lumpur, but it's like a small version of it. Because some of my friends attend there and also say like it might be interesting to visit. Yeah.
The fair in Bologna, they are supporting OAN.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah, we have contacts in 2020, and then a little bit talk because they not able to organize the book fair. So I try to contact them how we can connect together and stuff. Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah,
that's a nice partner to know.
Thank you.
But Roby, I have to say something about what you just said about Vietnamese artists. You're underestimating what they can. I think a few years ago I was invited to go to Istanbul in Turkey together with other writers and illustrators to show the Turkish writers and illustrators how you write and illustrate a good book. And they showed us their work. It was so beautiful. It was so interesting for us. It's not a one-way thing. It's a two-way thing. We can learn from each other and become inspired by each other. It's not that the Vietnamese people can learn from us, but we can learn from each other. So don't underestimate your artists.
But there's something.
And of course, we needed years and years and years in the Netherlands to forget that a book shouldn't be something to learn something about, but when you read it, just enjoy it. Make stories for pleasure, so that the children can say, I've read this nice story, and what did you learn from it? I don't know. Of course, they learn something from every story they read, but it's not. Books are not meant to be something that you can use at school for learning, but it's just for entertaining. That's the most important thing. And 40 years ago, when I started, there were many books in the Netherlands for education, children's books, and now they're almost gone because the quality, the literary quality of the text and the artistic quality of the pictures are the most important thing in a book nowadays. True?
Yeah, it's the intention of the Art for Children Gallery of Oan that children can look at art just to enjoy it. They don't have to try to make it, because there are so many who make it already. But the meeting between like artists from the Netherlands or from Europe and authors from Vietnam, that's something she also planned to do, but it takes a while to prepare it, to find funding for it, to get people enthusiastic, because with illustrators, it is the same in Vietnam now as 40 years ago in the Netherlands. When I wrote my book about how to illustrate children books, a lot of illustrators, they said, oh, I can you tell you this, but I don't want to have my name in it. Because they were afraid that when the publishers were reading it, that they didn't want them to work anymore for them. So, and in Vietnam, it's a bit the same right now. And that like this kind of videos, they will help a lot for them, because they say, oh, this is what they do. And especially because this Vietnamese editor, or I should name her, it's a she is investing in this kind of project and this kind of books to broaden the market in Vietnam in another way as the just the popular things that are selling good everywhere. And so, what's the name of the editor one?
You want to know the owner name or the name of the editor's company?
Both.
So she Chang, and then the company is the Ho Pao.
But you met her before she had a company.
Yeah, I met her. She introduced several different authors from France, I remember, and we met her there. And in that time, she cooperation with the other editor in Vietnam, and now she opened her up. Yeah.
Okay.
And I've understood that of our book, a few hundred copies will be printed, a soft cover, to give away to children who can't have books normally.
Yeah, she working with some other organizations, mostly like like in Vietnam we have a lot of ethnic groups, so some places they're not able to buy the book, so she will donate some certain amount of book for those kind of regions. Some school that they need book books for children or different material for children to learn, or even for some disabled organizations that they really need for children. Yeah.
Sympathetic.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nice.
It's a very interesting development in Vietnam. That's why this kind of exchange with books, and it starts with bringing books from other countries to Vietnam, but interesting books that are not the kind of books you find everywhere in every country on the same between Walt Disney and the other things. So, so that's the reason why we love to work with this editor. They also published my books. I only wrote 2 books, but they published. But Oan wrote also a very nice children book, a circular book. And then there was a Vietnamese publisher, and she had a Vietnamese illustrator. And then they wanted to publish her story, but with another illustrator, because it was too Vietnamese. And then Oan said, well, then I don't want you to publish it. So she stick with the illustrator. And when people in other countries see the illustration, they say, oh, it's so nice. And then I think, yeah, but some editors are so afraid for what they make themselves. It's a pity.
Yeah, it's a shame. That's a shame.
Still a lot to do.
Yeah.
You need your own identity, I guess.
Of course.
Yeah, but it's also really hard the way that the publisher and editors are really working separate. So it's really hard for them to really running their own business as well. So they will think about the risk, that if it's the big risk, invest a lot for them in the market for the new one. So I think it's kind of makes sense to do that at this moment, but I hope that it will change in the future. That situation. Yeah.
But maybe they would be surprised if they published once a book with a real Vietnamese writer and a Vietnamese style artist, and maybe the Vietnamese people do like that a lot more than all this American and other foreign stuff.
So
maybe.
they do have also a lot of different books that written and also illustrations by Vietnamese, but I would say like it's also funny, like they often go with another name on the book for the selling as well. So if I don't remember well how many of them really able to make their own book with their own name on that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
But they do have some Vietnamese writers and authors. They're working really hard by themselves to publish their own book. Yeah.
But here in Holland we also have of course the mainstream is also Disney-like, and we have Studio 100, for example. That's a Belgian entertainment house. They make children's television, but they also publish books, but they are all with some kind of American line. It's all very, very smooth and very digital made. And but we also have the more artistic work, and now sometimes it's really Dutch, but sometimes it's also international, fit for international market.
Yeah.
But I think there should be a coexistence between the styles. Of course, I understand that the main public maybe go for the really more foreign styles, but it doesn't mean that you should deny the own cultural arts. I think that's a really, really big shame, and it's also poverty, I guess, for culture. to
Yeah.
deny your own language and deny your own visual language as well.
But
Yeah.
at least you are an illustrator, so your illustrations, they look the same as in the Netherlands. But everybody in any country, they see exact the same work that you made. But the author, his work is translated.
Yeah.
Yes.
And translated, the translators, they always had to find something to make it up. And that's a big problem when you're an author, that you do not really know how they translate your books. So,
Well, I can't control the Vietnamese translation of the story.
You never know, Rindert. You never know.
You don't know. Yeah.
Well,
It's a completely different story now. But
they do it sometimes with illustrations as well. Look at our Pippi Longstocking books. I don't know if you know Pippi Longstocking one, but they were made by a Swedish artist originally, but they are remade by Karl Hollander for Holland. And sometimes I get to hear that other publishers from other countries do like books I illustrated, but they like the stories, and they think the illustrations are too Dutch. So it does happen. It does happen.
Sometimes it is the opposite, because I had a very good friend, Friso Henstra, and his books had the original drawings in other countries, and he won all international prizes. But in the Netherlands, they didn't want to publish his work because they were afraid it was not that children would not accept it. It's very, very strange. So he became worldwide very famous, and in the Netherlands, almost nobody knows his book till we came with the Malle Maffe Muis and the other books. And then he also got rewards in the Netherlands, but it's very, very strange.
Yeah.
But I just want to say you are lucky, because in Vietnam, they are very open-minded in what they publish, and what there are certain topics you cannot talk about, because they don't want people discussing the whole time those topics. But in the other way, they are very easygoing. They won't scrap stitch or that. So I think for children books, they don't have to care. They are translated very good.
But an important thing is because here, for example, in the Netherlands, but also in other European countries, our children's book publishers are always interested in books from other cultures. So suppose a Vietnamese writer and illustrator will make a really good, really Vietnamese book, we will be interested. So once again, don't
I think so too.
underestimate your own culture when it concerns making children. I feel half Italian, half Dutch.
Wow.
Yeah.
No,
it's one
actually, when I say my blood is Dutch, but my heart is Italian.
Yeah, because one of your most lovely books is you made with Jan Jutte, Peppino, I think it was.
Yeah, yes.
The most funny book of you I remember was Shall We Keep These Ones? I think that's such a funny
Sylvia. Zullen we deze mannen houden? It is a book from 1981.
Yeah, but it's still funny. You know that book, Natascha?
No. For what age was it?
Well,
in 81, I was 10 years old, so I might have read it. I read the library.
I started to read children books when I was already 40 or something or older, and then I discover Pudding Tarzan, which I love.
Yeah.
It's
such
a
brilliant. I love it.
Yeah. Because first I wrote a book about a child in foster house, and then I thought, let's turn things around. The children are not satisfied with their parents, and they put them in a foster house for parents. And then they're alone and they have to do everything at home themselves, and they don't like that. So they go to a warehouse where you can buy parents, and they try first this couple, but they don't like that couple. And then can we change these parents? Of course, if you've kept the receipts, you can change them. And so that's the story. And it's a picture book in black and white, and Sylvia and I, was, I think, our first book together, from Sylvia Weve and me.
Yes, yes. Okay.
Nice.
Yeah, I did read books with illustrations of Sylvia Weve, but those were more books for older children, because I was 10 plus then. So I love those illustrations. They're not childish. They're cool.
Yes, that's a nice one.
Yeah.
There's also a drawing you made. So
Yeah.
I was wondering, did you try out yourself to make that big pile of piece?
No, but I always like to. But what to make? Sometimes I like to make things that can't be done in real life. Just because I can in illustration. There are a lot of things you can't do in real life, but that's the fun of illustration. I always, also when I go to schools and tell children about illustration, I always take the example of Little Red Riding Hood. Just imagine someone has rewritten the story of Little Red Riding Hood, and they made a big book of it. It made it this big, this thick, and this big. And you need to illustrate make the first illustration in the book. What do you see? Well, children say, "Oh, we see the wolf." No, the wolf is not yet in the story at that point. So what do you show? Well, probably the mother and the kid, and maybe the forest in the distance. But I say, just take your little sister, put on a little red riding hood and a little cape on, and give her a basket of fruit and a little bottle of wine. And maybe the teacher can play the mom, and she waves that Little Red Riding Hood, and the kid goes to the forest. Oh, you can make a picture, just make a photograph of it, and you're ready, right? Yeah, all the children say, yeah, that is okay. I said, yeah, well, just imagine having a book this thick and this big, and the first picture you see is a photograph of a little girl and her mother waving at her. Do you want to take the trouble? Do you want to go to the trouble of reading all the text in this big book? No, you throw it aside and you say, well, I take that book about dinosaurs. It's much more fun. Yeah, right, they say. I say, what can you do to make this illustration, the first page of this book? You open up the book, you see a lot of text, but you also see this picture, this illustration. And when you look at the illustration, this is the first thing you look at in a book. What if this illustration makes you think, whoa, what will happen next? I must read this text because it's so exciting. I need to know what will happen to this girl. What can you do? So then they start imagining, well, maybe they see this forest in the distance and they see flowers in the foreground that look like blood drops. And they see, oh, this forest is really creepy with all those trees with big branches. And well, they start on and say, yeah, you can't make a photograph of this. That's why you need to make an illustration. And that's the fun about illustrations. You can show so much more in an illustration than in a photograph, for example. So, and then those children also understand how it works.
But that's a little bit function of the cover. When you have the cover of the book and you see the illustration, and that illustration has to contain the whole story of the book. And then there is the title. Rindert, do you create the titles yourself, or is it somebody, the editor, who is doing it?
No, most of the time it's me. But talking about the illustrations and the cover, when I've made just I get the book. One second.
Well, I use the example of the first illustration because on the cover of the book, they can always show the wolf, but you can't show it in the first illustration. So that's just for explaining to those children.
Oh, yeah.
I made this book. The
I cannot-
illustration is by Linde Vaas.
Oh yeah,
Oh, I don't-
yeah.
She's a Dutch illustrator and she lives in Norway. But there's a foreword in the book written by Tonke, as you can see.
Yeah.
It starts with, hey, stop reading. Close the book again and have a good look at the cover, at least for 1 minute. You remember what you've seen. The most important thing is the door. And then she goes on. So she inspires children to have a good look at the cover before you start reading.
That is so brilliant.
Yes.
Really nice in the way the houses start the book.
In the past, we had every year an exhibition with covers, because for older people, the illustrator only make the cover and they could never get a prize for it. And then we said, okay, we make an exhibition with all the impressive covers, because a cover is so incredibly important. It's the introduction in the book. And it was very interesting. And when I see that kind of covers, that it's you almost don't have to read the book, but you want to read it because it's like the
cover
door
and title are important. Cover and title. When I ask children what's your favorite book and where do you look at, what do you look at when you choose a book, they always look at the cover and the title. And then I ask, and the name of the author? No. Children don't look at the name of the writer or the illustrator.
Yeah.
It's also so funny. They sometimes ask me if are you quite famous? I said, well, illustrators don't get famous. Yeah, we just have Dick Bruna, but that's but I say name a name of an illustrator, a famous illustrator. And they start thinking, well, they don't know any illustrators. So I said, well, that's how famous illustrators get, not.
Yeah, but one of the problems is that like Alphonse van Heusden, he was one of the most famous illustrators in the Netherlands, but nobody knew, because he makes works for very young children, and very young children, they cannot read. So they cannot read his name, so they only know his illustrations.
Yes.
And
yeah.
But that's the most important thing, our work, not our names.
No.
Yeah.
No. I don't have to be famous. I don't even, I think I don't even like being famous. It's no. It's all about the fun.
Well, when I'm somewhere and children of people ask me, what do you do? I'm a writer. Oh, what books have you written? Well, I've never heard of you, they say first. What books have you written? And then I say, that's always a success. Erge Ellie and Nara Nelly. Ah, but I know that book. Look at the name of the author.
Yeah.
Can I ask you, you write books for young children, very young children, and you write also for older.
Yeah.
How do you set up your mind? Because when I read your books for very young children, it takes just a few lines, and then I can feel that it's for that age. But for me, it looks so difficult because you have to think in their language. So I know when I give lectures, I find it always very difficult to talk with very young children, much more difficult than with older children. How do you do that?
I don't know. It's a feeling. You know, I've been a child myself, and I still remember. And I look at children and I listen to children. But when I write about a young child, the language of the young children come into me. I don't know how. It's a way of feeling. Yes, this is okay, or no, this is not okay. This is not how a young child thinks or talks. Or yes, this is okay. This is a real child of 4 years old, or this is a real child of 10 years old. It's yes, it's how do you say it? Fingerspitzengefühl in German.
Yeah. Intuition, maybe.
Intuition. That's the word. But when I write a historical novel for young adults, it's as natural as writing a book for the 3 years for me. It depends on the subject too.
And
It
it's so
really
amazing.
depends on the subject. When I write about whatever the war in Ukraine now, it will be or about all the refugees. It's a complicated subject. I can't write a simple picture book for children. Write about that, I think. So when the subject comes to me, my feeling is this should be a book with a main character of, let's say, 15 years old, because the things that happen are suitable for a 15-year-old person.
So your subject.
When I start writing, I go into the head of a 15-year-old. So the language in the book will be also the language of 15-year-olds or 3-year-olds or old people like me. It's natural. It's not a matter of now I'm going to write a book for 6-year-olds or 6 year up or 15 years and up. It's a matter of yes, this feels good. This will be a book like that, but not in advance. Only when I'm thinking about an idea.
Yeah,
Is it clear what I say? Because I never really think about it. Just
for me, it's very clear. It makes you a real great author, because when I read your books for young children, then it's logic how it is written. It's not like somebody is sit down and bound it for children and make it childish. No, it's like it's really logic how children talk and behave. At the same, when I read a book about from you for older children, then it's exactly the same. It's their age. They are talking, and so for me, it's something I found it so incredibly difficult to find the right language for younger children as for older children, because you cannot make the jokes. You must keep in mind that they are smart, but they do not have so much knowledge because they're still young. And I think it's the same with Vietnamese children, that they are, when they're young, they behave quite different when they are older.
Children are young, but they've got the right to be to get professional art. Not oh yes, let's make this for children. No, make a professional book in language and in pictures, and give that to children. That's their right. Don't
address
make it childish.
With respect.
Don't ever make it childish.
It's a good line for Oan, her art gallery. The children are young, but they have the right to have professional art for them.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's
I think, Natascha?
Yes, I agree, definitely. Yes. I don't think you have to be too sweet for children. I think they can handle a lot, and they get bored. I think if you just give them ready-made entertainment,
Yep.
you can yeah, I can't get the English word, uitdagen.
Challenging.
Yeah, to challenge them a little. I think that's also okay. It's okay. It's nice to be just at the right level with them, but it's also nice to be sometimes in that level in which you talk to them, in which you address them. You make some kind of little jumps, just to push them, just to challenge them a little, and that makes reading and looking interesting. Just like the plate with peas, what you just showed, but that's not possible. The peas in a pile like that, but that's just a little sting you give them. So it's hey, that's not right. Hey, that's funny. Just challenge them intellectually or visually. I think that is the fun about it, and I think that's also for what makes books interesting for children
and for adults too.
Yeah, same.
Yeah,
I like
same.
The important thing of literature for whatever age is to challenge the reader, to show him the world is bigger than yours, to make him think, I was sure about this, but am I still sure about this after reading this book?
Yeah.
Make him think, the reader, without being a teacher, of course.
Yeah.
Make him think through writing, offering a good story with challenging pictures.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
So,
And wrong foot them sometimes a little, just a little wrong footing, just like putting them off their subject and taking them out of their own bubble.
Yeah, exactly.
So we're talking about a lot about the artwork for children and stuff. So I have a question for Rangers. So when you start a book, do you have your kind of idea about which illustrator that you will pick for your own book?
Yes.
So how
Because
you writing the text and then come to them, or how the step will?
When I make a picture book, because my historical novels for young adults don't have any illustrations, unfortunately. That's common. For young children, there are many illustrations, and for older children, no illustrations or just a few. In the past, it was different, but now it's like that. But when I have an idea for a children's story, I always know I want to ask this illustrator for this book. And that's important to me because my writing will be influenced when I already know, this illustrator will make pictures. Not what kind of pictures, but the atmosphere of pictures influences my writing. And I've made, for example, many books together with Jan Jutte, the illustrator. And I didn't know what kind of pictures Jan would make together for this story. But the fact that Jan or Sylvia or Annemarie van Haringen, the Little Donkey books, or now Natascha would make the pictures is of great importance for me during writing.
Wow, interesting for that. And I want to ask, like, for the young children, the picture books is really important for them. So obviously the illustrations are really important for young children. How about the older people, like the other ages? Because I know that you write different books for different ages.
Yeah.
So the illustrations are also important for the older people.
There are no illustrations in books for other people. There used to be illustrations in Charles Dickens, for example, was illustrated. It was normal in those days to illustrate any book, but the text has to do it itself.
Actually, how that is now. because we funny how that is now, because we live more and more in a picture, in an visual culture with video clips and videos and very fast media. Why is that even that there are no pictures anymore? Why is that coming back for older people? It's probably too expensive, I guess, for publishers.
Well, because of their never illustrations in books for, let's say, young adults, 15-year older, because of there are never illustrations in those books. Suppose we'll make a book now for 15-year and older with illustrations, then the reader of 15-year will say, "Oh no, that's for young children. I don't want it."
Maybe we should make something like that and then offer it like a novelty.
Yep.
Now with illustrations.
There are books with illustrations for older readers, but they're never a success because everybody thinks it's for young children. And then they buy the book for young children and they don't like the story because it's too complicated.
Yeah. Crazy. Yeah.
With the pictures, oh yes, that's a book for young children. No.
I think maybe also because there are a lot of books, and then they have the book is written, and then they ask somebody to make a few illustrations for it, and then the illustrations, they are just repeating the text. There is no there's nothing relation between the text and the illustration because it's just added later, and there you don't see, like when you work together, it grows up together, the illustration and that's also possible with when you only have a few illustrations, but so often they just have a book and then or it's a translated book or something like that, and then they ask somebody, "Oh, can you make illustrations for this?" In fact, like with Pippi Langkous, Carol Hollander, they got the book and the book was ready, and they just make new illustrations because the illustration fits more with the local culture. And that makes that it's not. Some illustrators, they really make a great job of it, but some they just make an illustration and they don't care so much. They get a little paid up and they
sometimes publishers ask for this just to support the text, not to enhance the text, just to not to be extra or just explaining the text. That's sometimes just the commission. Just make no, it's more like ornamental or but not really part of the story, just to make it more attractive.
I remember a book written by Paul Biegel, De Tuinen van Dor, it was called, and it was illustrated by Tonke Dracht. And then the publisher wanted to make an edition for adult readers of the same story. So they published the book without any illustrations, and it was a failure because also the adults wanted to buy the book with the illustrations.
And I also remember that you told me once that you wrote the book especially for Jan Jutta, that you made up the whole story so Jan Jutta could make the best illustrations.
Yes, that's true.
Was it Pepito? I think it was Pepito or something.
No, Pepino was mine. Where are they? No, once I was having dinner with Jan, and Jan said something, I don't remember what, and then I thought, let's write a story about a group of animals on their way to a dinner party. And Jan said, "Oh yes, that's a nice idea." Yes, I said that they won't get a dinner, those animals. They will be the dinner, but they don't know. And so we wrote rare vocals.
Oh.
It's always like that.
I also made a cookbook for my graduation at the art academy. I made for my graduation. I made a cookbook, and it was Bob's dinner house. But Bob was a bear, and he invited people to eat them. Oh, just like it, also with recipes in it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Wow.
But I have a question on. It's maybe impertinent, but this story you've written with the really Vietnamese illustrator.
Yeah.
Would it be possible just to? Do you have digital imagery of that?
Yes, I
would
have.
absolutely love to see it. If
For
you
sure.
would like to send something to us.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm very curious.
Yes. I will send to the illustrations and also the text under. The idea of the book is mostly for the young children try to learn English. So they will use kind of like a Vietnamese English sentence. So they try to like speak a little bit at home in English. So that is the whole idea about, and also based on Roby concept with the circle book that it's talking about during the day and during the night. So what's happened, and because this book it also can use for the parents and the children want to like just tell me more what's else, they don't want to end the story, so it's a circle, and then the parent can create the activity by themselves based on the activity during the day and the night. Yeah,
right. That seems sensible, just to use real Vietnamese illustrations then, but whatever. But I'm really curious about that. So
for sure.
Would be
Thank you for that, for asking. I will send the mail to you.
Thank you.
And greeting to you guys. So thank you a lot. I would love to show the Vietnamese young people to, I mean, like they love this kind of video to get them a little bit motivations, encourage them to continue with what they're trying to do now.
Experiment a little in your own visual language. I think that is important for everybody. And that makes the world of visual of illustration more interesting.
All right. So thank you so much.